Guess what, you jerks? It's time to go back into the vaults. Into the collection we go. We're going through my CD collection alphabetically, very, 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 very slowly. While I talk about this pile of goodness here, we're going to be listening to, kind of bright here, feel like I'm up on stage. We're going to be listening to the debut, I believe, of Secrets of the Moon, Stronghold of the... I never understood this. The last word is inviolables. Invaluables? Stronghold of the Invaluables. I don't know. I don't know what they were going for, but this was a really, really forward-thinking black metal release for its time. It came out, I'm gonna pull this out of my butt and assume maybe 2000, 2001 or so, and it came out on this little boutique label called Kickatrix or Sickatrix or something, which was an offshoot of Red Stream Records. Now, Red Stream was a label that I used to be friends with Patrick. I visited his house and shopped in his library for a little while once. But I used to order from Red Stream a whole lot. But he had a pretty good relationship with Neil from Krieg, and I believe this Kickatrix is Neil kind of partnering with Pat from Red Stream to do a few releases. And he only did 3 or 4. He did Krieg's The Black Church EP. There's also a Perunvit split with Krena Bez Viatru, which is fucking awesome. And this, and that might be it. Yeah, just a real short-lived thing. And then I think Neil went on to do his own thing a little while later, and that I think fell through because it was like a Lugabrum release that never came out, but that's got nothing to do with this. Anyways, I always thought this was a really, really interesting, well thought out, it was an album for at the time. It did a lot to kind of move the genre forward out of the 90s and kind of into the next few years. But honestly, these guys really blew up after this record came out. And I never really saw what all the hype was about. I listened to a few of them, and I could not believe people were going nuts for that stuff. So, it is what it is. I definitely remember when my buddy and I were writing the first Satan's Almighty Penis record. This was a big influence. We really liked a lot of the big ideas that they were putting forth on this. And I don't know if you're a fan of Sap's Into the Cunt of Chaos record, check this out and kind of look for some similarities. I think you'll find it's a kind of an interesting entry point. Anyways, we're kind of finishing out the F's, so that probably means 4 more videos of F's. Anyways, these are kind of all fucked up and out of order, but it kind of doesn't matter. Handful of kind of different things. I guess this would probably be a smarter way to go about it. So I have 2 albums from New York. Flourishing is where New York is where Flourishing is from. I have the this is the Sum of All Fossils, and I played this in a video. It's probably been a year or two now. First of all, this is really, really interesting, progressive, experimental, but also just brutal, sludgy kind of death metal. It really doesn't sound like anything else. And I've always been a really big fan of this Sum of All Fossils release. So I played it in the background of one of my videos a while back, and the label that released it, Path Less Traveled, out of Normal, Illinois, wrote me an email and asked for my address and sent me this humongous box of goodies. I really appreciated it. I passed on a few things to a friend of mine who also really appreciated it, in case you're wondering. He also does a channel called Mostly Metal. So I'll leave a link down below if you want to check out his label, and he's another metal YouTuber. Kind of does some metal, some not metal, but you know, It Takes All Kinds. But he also sent me this other Flourishing record, which I didn't even know existed until he sent it to me. I think this is a little bit of a, this is maybe an EP. I listened to it once because it was kind of fairly recently that he sent me this. It's called A Momentary Sense of the Immediate World. And it wasn't surprising or anything. It was really good, but it sounded pretty much in line with this Sum of All Fossils release. And it was killer. So Flourishing are a really under-recognized band. I don't think they lasted for more than 2 or 3 years or so, but they were really, really bizarre. I remember discovering them, I think, because of the Relapse forum back in probably 2005 or 6 or something like that. Really cool stuff. So that's Flourishing with the Sum of All Fossils and A Momentary Sense of the Immediate World on Path Less Traveled Records. So, how about FL? I got these all out of order. I kind of reacquainted myself with some of these albums before I shot this video so that I would kind of have some fresh takes on some of it. Next we've got Folkvang with Atmospheric Black. That is a nail on the head album title if I ever fucking heard one, but this is a really underrated band too. They're from Norway, but I don't necessarily think that you would assume that, giving what it sounds like. But man, it's really good. I can't remember. I'm not super familiar with this band, and I just picked this up in Chicago maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it had been a couple of years prior to that I had kind of been more listening to this band. I think he has, I want to say it's a solo project, and I want to say he has 2 or 3 other albums that might be better than this one, and I've always kind of meant to pick them up, but this is no slouch. Atmospheric Black doesn't necessarily sound Norwegian. Now, I'll probably shoot this video, look it up, and find out that he's from fucking Ukraine or something, but I am pretty damn sure that he's from Norway, but it doesn't really sound Norwegian. I think it sounds more in line with Druk from Ukraine. This came out on Winter Sunset, a label I've never heard of. Couldn't tell you anything about them, but I just found this used in a bin and kind of felt like I had to rescue it. It's really good, atmospheric black metal, but I don't know, it may be a little more proto-atmospheric black metal, maybe a little bit more like 90s style, kind of turn of the century atmospheric black metal, not kind of what it's become today. I guess I'm kind of coming to a realization that like there's some truth to be had in differentiating between like nowadays atmospheric black metal and like 94 atmospheric black metal. That's good stuff from Folkvang. Next is a band also from Norway, Forlorn. This is the Crystal Palace. This came out on Voices of Wonder, Had Not Found. Put out a ton of killer releases, but I don't know, this is kind of forgettable-ish Norwegian black metal, but the kind that's like really synth heavy, got a lot in common with like Dismal Euphony, 122 Stab Wounds-ish kind of stuff, Gehenna, really symphonic. I mean, how good is this going to be if you've got a floating head? I don't know. It's okay. It's one of those things that I just kind of want to have as a collector in case sometime it ever just totally hits the spot. And I found it at a pawn shop in a weird grab one time. It's kind of Emperor-ish at times, but it's just not that great, I would say. They did wind up doing a couple more records. The next one. Funny thing is, my boss, Mitch King, he's the one who keeps this whole thing going with all the videos and such, cracks that whip. He posted this album on my Facebook wall the other day, and it was funny. I actually got this in a VCLT from my buddy Shane, maybe a year or two ago or so, and I don't think I had ever heard it this time, but it's called, I don't know what this is called, Opus 3 Ad Calestis Res. I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that one. This is just a slimline promo kind of deal. God, this fucking rules. I feel like I do that a lot in my videos. I'm just like distracted by the riffs over my shoulder. But this is kind for fans of Anharier, Enslaved, kind of somewhere around there. Napalm was based out of Germany, and I think they started an office in America, and they just fucking hammered this street team with promos all over the place, and it wasn't too hard to get on their street team, and they would just fucking send you fucking free copies of all their releases. But it was kind of past their prime when their releases were kind of like, not so great. They would send these little like hype sheets with them, giving you like a little rundown of the album. Here's why you need to carry this in your store. And this thing compares them to Anharier, Enslaved, Falkenbach. And yeah, it's kind of like one of those late century, kind of more futuristic thinking, but still kind of in the 90s style black metal records. The drums are kind of too loud on this for me, but giving it a couple of cursory spins, I like it. It's alright. But Forlorn did another album, I think after this one, maybe two, but there's one that I don't have a copy of. It's got a skeleton on it or something, but I remember being really impressed by that one for what it's worth. Next, though, Fog with Through the Eyes of Night. This is one of those albums that I kind of keep in my back pocket to be evangelical about, because it is so criminally just buried by time and dust. This came out on a small label called Dark Horizon, which I'm sure a lot of you like nerdy types like me are probably going to be familiar with. But it is really, really worth revisiting this record. If you want to hear something, you know, paying tribute to Welkin era, Emperor, somewhere around there, it's super symphonic, but doesn't like trip over its own shoelaces in achieving that. It's fucking lightning fast. It's well produced, super well performed and written. I just think this is a really, really killer release, and I never understood why these guys didn't take off. I think Dark Horizon is kind of like, just almost does bands a disservice when they're on that label. I feel like I'm saying more than I really mean here, but they've had a ton of releases come out over the years, and like I don't think anybody's ever fucking heard any of them. I don't know who they're selling their records to or how he's funding his label or whatnot, but the guy who runs that label was in this band, and I don't know what ever came of them. He went on to do another band called Typhus, which was really cheesy. You can also get this on LP, but Through the Eyes of Night is killer. They also did like a split with Horna and a 7-inch split with Astrial, I want to say. But yeah, great band, sorely missed, Fog. I also saw him live, and we released a live DVD of Fog. We went and did a show, we filmed a show. It was like Demon Sea, and this was the first time that Demon Sea had like come back, back in like 2003 or so. It was going to be Woods of Ypres. They were going to come down from Canada and play their first show, I think, ever, maybe just in the United States. They wound up dropping off the bill, but it was going to be Demon Sea, Woods of Ypres, Fog, this band from New York called Elusive Travel, which was kind of good. I want to say there was something else. But we released a couple of those sets on DVD, and it was really killer. The Demon Sea set was absolutely amazing. That was... I became familiar with Joined in Darkness. I'm getting way off topic here. Right around that time, saw their set, blew me the fuck away, and I was a huge Demon Sea fan ever since. But Fog were also really killer live. And that's the only Fog release that I have there. Next we've got Forest of Impaled. Mortis Day. I picked this up pretty recently, back in Chicago. God, killer logo. Can't go wrong with that. This was a U.S. black metal band, but I believe two of its members immigrated here from Poland. I could be pulling this out of the wrong asshole, but I think that's what it was. But this band featured Marcus Kohler, who wound up being in a band called Sarcophagus with Andrew Harris from Judas Iscariot. He's played in kind of a lot of other bands. I think most recently he was in Commandant, but Force and Impaled were pretty good. This was the debut EP. Maybe it was a demo just kind of incidentally pressed on CD. I think this was self-released. It has an address out of Skokie, Illinois, but it's just your pretty standard 90s US black metal with a little bit of heft to it. It's got kind of some muscle behind it, but they really took it off with the muscle with Forward the Spears. This was a much more aggressive, just balls to the wall record for them, and it came out on Redstream, I think. Yeah, Redstream. And this was just kind of one of those bands that got lost in the shuffle in, I don't know, 98, 99 or so, around there. I went ahead, I think I had the band autograph this copy. Yeah, there's Marcus Kohler, fuck off and die. We didn't get along, apparently. But this is really good, beefy, just mighty fucking dark black metal. But it's nothing, not a whole lot to write home about, but you can check it out in the links down below, of course. They did another album, or maybe two after that, and I never really kept up with them. Why don't we take care of this turd next? I feel like I'm the only band who doesn't understand why anyone thinks that Forgotten Woods is worth listening to. Sorry. I know, it's just me. I have owned The Curse of Mankind for probably 20 years now. And I've probably spun it maybe 5 times. And it's just because every time I look at it, I'm like, God, this is fucking classic Norwegian black metal. No Colors put this out. I've owned it forever, and I just don't get it. I think it sounds limp-wristed, unmusical. It doesn't have, like, it's not melodic enough to be interesting or involving, and it's not like simple, so simple that it's like atmospheric and great and grim. I guess maybe that is what people like about it, but it just doesn't really work for me in either way. It's poorly produced. I think it's really poorly written. And that's The Curse of Mankind, and they fucking end it with a cover of the Velvet Underground, which is a band I fucking can't stand. So, I thought last year when I found this in a used bin, I was like, alright, tell you what, I'll give them a second chance. This is a 3 CD set of The Curse of Mankind and As the Wolves Gather, and the EP Shelled of Notten, Soul of Night. Also some unreleased tracks from The Curse of Mankind, if I'm understanding this correctly. This package is such a shit show. It's so weird. They also tacked on a Joyless CD, I guess. And as confusing as all of this is to read in the first place, and the booklet is also really fucky and shitty, and No Colors needs a fucking art director so bad. This is just such a piece of shit. To top it all off, I didn't realize it, but this is a 3 CD set, and somehow it's missing one of the fucking CDs. I guess the shop, or maybe the person that sold it to the record store, lost one of the CDs and put it in this double case and put it in there. So now I have this fucking piece of shit of a band that I barely even like. Some of the stuff, I guess I found it to be better than The Curse of Mankind, but honestly, it's going to take a long time if I ever give these guys another shot. I just can't stand them. On to something good, though. Forgotten Tomb with their debut Springtime Depression. This is a brilliant, one of the better debuts to come out of Europe in the last 20 years. Got this autographed by Hair Morbid. This is when it was a solo project with a session drummer. And this came out on Edibokir back in 2003. And I know that because he autographed it with a year. We were really blown away when my buddy and I first heard this band. It's got that it's got like those mournful, sorrowful, kind of suicidal kind of guitar harmonies like Catatonia kind of invented, but it really takes that off in just a beautiful direction. It's so original for its time. It's super brilliantly produced. The drums just sound huge and great. The guitar tone is just awesome. Everything came together super well on this debut, Springtime Depression. I love it. It's got super memorable riffs that just glue to your brain instantly. But immediately following, he shit the bed and wrote Love's Burial Ground. Now, I do think this is a really good album, but this guy fucking ruined this album with the vocals. Oh, such a fucking disaster. It's an otherwise pretty good record, but I honestly can't get through it because the vocals on this are so obnoxiously over the top, over distorted, and just god awful. And I don't understand it. He acquired other players to fill out the band. The drummer is pretty killer on this, but man, it's just such a fucking waste that he just fucking screeches obnoxiously over this entire record, which is like sorrowful and mournful. It's just antithetical to the whole atmosphere going on. And then the guy, he turns around, and I think the next full length maybe was called Negative Megalomaniac, and he started getting all like rock star cocky kind of shit, style wise, and I was fucking done. I haven't listened to anything after Love's Burial Ground, and it's just such a shame, because this would be a really, really, really killer follow-up to Springtime Depression if he wouldn't have fucking just absolutely murdered it with some of the worst vocals I've ever heard in black metal. What a fucking shame. I will move on from that. Lastly, we're going to follow up with Forest Silence. This band is out of Hungary, and the album is called, it's been a long time since I listened to this, Philosophy of Winter, yeah. So I found out about this when I was doing some digging around. If you're familiar with the band called Sear Bliss, that is kind of one of those bands that a lot of people would kind of look back and go, what? I've heard of that band, but I thought they were crappy. Sear Bliss has some pretty killer albums, honestly. We'll get into those sometime. I don't put them on too often, but whenever I do, I think, damn, they're good. Sear Bliss were kind of unique because they had I think they had a saxophone player and a French horn player. Anyways, one of the members of Hungary's Sear Bliss has this solo project called Forest Silence. Now, I might be wrong about it being a solo project. This booklet is so dark and impossible to read. His name is Winter. He plays keyboards, bass, and vocals. No, this is a three-piece. So I just kind of started digging into this guy's discography, and he put out some amazing stuff. He's also in a band called Nefarious, and their debut EP, Diabolorum, is awesome. They also did a full length that was killer. He also does something called Arud, this ambient project, which I really like. But Forest Silence is definitely more going for the In the Nightside Eclipse kind of Emperor kind of style. Funny how a lot of the stuff in this pile kind of harkens back to Emperor. But it's really nice. It's got this kind of bass heavy kind of tone to it. It's a lot more kind of drawn out and slow and kind of eerie, and it really fits kind of the album cover, I think. I don't know if he released any other albums or not. I guess I would have to look into it. This came out on Candlelight. It looks like it was licensed by Candlelight from Peas Me. But it's really good stuff. It's solid. It's just not reinventing the wheel really that much. It's just good stuff. So that brings us to the end. Cranking out the content these days. I guess, yeah, I don't know. We'll see you next time. I appreciate you sticking with me. And yeah, let me know what you think about these albums. Let me know what you're listening to. All that good stuff. Say hi in the comments down below. I got a lot of subscribers and friends who say they watch every video. They enjoy it. But I'm like, how the fuck would I know? Because you never comment anything down below. So if you're a friend or whatever who's been watching for a long time, you've never left a comment, try and just think of something. Say hi down below in the comments. Just fucking let's converse. It's kind of the better part of reciprocating the communication. You know, I sit here and I talk, whatever. I'm gonna end it right here.